The Board of Aldermen will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Present.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Present.
Alderman Bosley. Alderwoman Hubbard.
Present.
Alderwoman Ingrassia.
Present.
Alderman Coatar.
Here.
Alderwoman Rice.
Present.
Alderman Gunther.
Here.
Alderman Vollmer.
Present.
Alderwoman Martin.
Present.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderwoman Green.
Present.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Present.
Alderman Rhodey.
Present.
Alderman Todd.
Present.
Alderwoman Davis.
Present.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Present.
Alderman Muhammad.
Present.
Alderman Boyd.
Present.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Present.
Alderman Narayan.
Here.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Present.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Present.
President Reed.
Here.
Alderman Bosley. Alderman Cone. 25 present.
Quorum being present, we begin the day with prayer. But before we begin prayer, I'm going to ask everybody to join me in a moment of silence for Congresswoman Maxine Waters' sister, Velma Carr, who passed away this past Wednesday, whose services was this past Wednesday, and she died of the coronavirus. She was a resident of St. Louis metro area. Thank you. And one more thing, the Board of Aldermen, we received a really short letter from Miss Myrtle Davis, and it reads, please say a prayer for Floyd King Wright, Jr., who died Sunday, April 26. He was very active in the Southwest Garden Neighborhood Association with his late mother, Janie. He was a landlord who made every effort to give his tenants a safe and comfortable living environment, employing a maintenance staff that responded quickly to concerns. I gave Floyd and the maintenance staff a Christmas card every year, a good human being. He will be missed. And that was from Miss Myrtle Davis, who has beautiful penmanship, by the way. Let's please keep Mr. Floyd King Wright Jr. in your prayers also. Giving all honor to God, Almighty God, source of all authority, we humbly ask guidance in our deliberations and wisdom in our conclusions. Amen. We will dispense with line item 3, introduction of honored guests, introduction of honored guests. Alderman from the 23rd.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. I'd like to recognize my friend Greg Meyer as my special guest.
All right, welcome, Greg. Any further introductions? Any further introductions? All right. Approval of the minutes.
Approval of the minutes, May 8th, 2020.
Alderman for the 22nd, you recognize on approval of the minutes.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for approval of the minutes dated May 8th, 2020.
Moved by
Second.
Alderman from the 22nd. Seconded by the Alderman from the 9th and the 23rd. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. If you guys will give me, point privilege, I'd like to go back to introduction of honored guests and recognize the alderman from the 10th. Alderman from the 10th, you recognize on the introduction of honored guests.
Trying to, I can't, they won't let me unmute. There I am. I'm all by myself in my office. I have no guests with me.
All right. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in A, B, and C of the agenda and has been placed in the alderman's mailboxes. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individual for appointment to the 2019 Grand Center Community Improvement District. The appointment of Ms. Stacy Howlett, a legal representative of the Angit Arts Hotel, who's the owner of a real property within the district, whose term will expire on November 4th, 2021. I respectfully request your approval of the appointment. Sincerely, Lyda Cruz, and Mayor.
Alderman from the 19th, you recognize on the mayor's appointment to the 2019 Grand Center Community Improvement District.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask for unanimous consent.
For this one, you could just move.
Can I just move? I'd like to move for approval.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 19th. Entertain a second on that.
Second.
Second.
Roll call. Second.
There's seconds again. It was seconded by the Alderman from the 9th and the 22nd. And
the 14th.
And the 4th. Any further discussion? There's been a request for roll call. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Tyus.
Present.
Alderwoman Middlebrook.
Aye.
Alderman Bosley.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingrassia. Alderman Coatar.
Aye.
Alderwoman Rice.
Aye.
Alderman Gunther.
Aye.
Alderman Vollmer.
Aye.
Alderwoman Martin.
Aye.
Alderwoman Murphy.
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Green.
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderman Rhodey.
Aye.
Alderman Todd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad.
Aye.
Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Vaccaro.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Navarro.
Aye.
President Reed.
Aye.
Alderwoman Ingrassia. $25 aye votes and 1 present.
By your vote, sustain the motion of the Alderman from the 19th and adopted the mayor's appointments to the Grand Center Community Improvement District.
That is the extent of report of city officials.
We dispense with line items 7 through 10, first reading of board bills.
Board Bill 19, sponsored by Alderman Vollmer, an ordinance approving a redevelopment plan for 5633 through 5637 Botanical area. Board Bill 20, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance enacting a curfew for Chambers Park, Jet Bank Park, Norman Say Park, Terry Park, Tiffany Park, prohibiting individuals from idling, wandering, strolling, playing, or otherwise being in or upon the premises of said parks and the public areas immediately adjacent to said parks daily throughout the year between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 21, sponsored by Alderman Vollmer, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission approving the name of a new public street located in City Block 4084 in the approved Qaulifications subdivision. Board Bill 22, sponsored by Alderman Coatar, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission on May 6, 2020, to change the zoning of property as indicated on district map from the J Industrial District to the G Local Commercial and Office District in City Block 377, so as to include the described parcels of land in City Block 377 and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 23, sponsored by Alderman Boyd, an ordinance recommended by the Parking Commission making appropriation for payment of the operating expenses, capital expenses, including lease purchase agreement and debt services expenses to the Parking Division of the Treasurer's Office for fiscal year July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 in the sum of $17,560,584 including $1,930,335 for capital improvements containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 24, sponsored by Alderwoman Tyus, Alderman Todd, and Alderman Vaccaro, an ordinance amending sections 2 and 3 of ordinance number 70333 and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 25, sponsored by Alderwoman Spencer, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Director of the City of St. Louis Health to enter into and execute a contract agreement with the National Association of County and City Health Officials as part of a Center for Disease Control and Prevention grant, CFDA 93421, to fund use of public health and safety team toolkit upon approval of the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, and to expend funds by entering into contracts or otherwise for grant purposes and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 26, sponsored by Alderwoman Ingrassia, an ordinance requiring utility service providers to locate utility service meters as defined in this ordinance outside of the public view and or employ one or more of the measures set forth herein to conceal them and containing a violations clause. Board Bill 27, sponsored by Alderwoman Ingrassia, Alderwoman Green, and Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, an ordinance requiring third-party food delivery services and certain food establishments to display City Health Department performance and risk-based inspection letter grades on the platforms used for taking online orders, and prohibiting third-party food delivery service from imposing requirements regarding purchase prices covered establishment may charge for orders of food and beverage or goods, and capping fees charged food establishment by third-party food delivery services, and requiring third-party food delivery services to obtain a business license, requiring third-party delivery services to disclose commission charged food establishment by the third-party delivery service, and requiring third-party food delivery services and food establishments to disclose gratuity policies for delivery workers, and containing an emergency clause and a severability clause. Board Bill 28, sponsored by Alderman Coatar, Alderwoman Davis, Alderwoman Ingrassia, and Alderman Gunther, an ordinance enlarging the boundaries of the City of St. Louis Port Authority, subject to the approval of the Missouri Highways and Transportation, and authorizing certain actions by the Port Authority. That is the extent of first reading of board bills.
Reference to committee.
To the Neighborhood Development Committee, Board Bill 19. To Public Safety, Board Bill 20. To the Streets Committee, Board Bill 21, 23, and 24. To HUD's Committee, Board Bill 22. To Health and Human Services, Board Bill 25 and 27. To Public Utilities, Board Bill 26. And to Transportation and Commerce, Board Bill 28. That is the extent of reference to committee.
Second reading.
The following board bill was reported out of Streets Committee with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 10, sponsored by Alderwoman Howard, an ordinance repealing City of St. Louis Ordinance 70973 pertaining to parking within the 5347 Nottingham Parking District, and enacting a new ordinance revising the name of said parking district, adding to its location, establishing restriction for parking within the district and authorizing placement of permit parking only signs and containing a definitions clause, penalty clause, and an emergency clause. Board Bill 13, sponsored by Alderman Jeffrey Boyd, an ordinance recommended by the Parking Commission on the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, making appropriation for the transfer of the sum of $5 million from the Parking Meter Fund to the General Reserve Fund of the City of St. Louis to help offset expenditures from the General Reserve Fund necessitated by the COVID-19 pandemic and the extraordinary costs incurred by the city in its efforts to protect the health and well-being of public and containing an emergency clause. The following board bill was reported out of Education and Youth Matters. Board Bill 8, sponsored by Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Muhammad, Alderwoman Ingrassia, Alderwoman Pam Boyd, Alderman Coatar, Alderwoman Middlebrook, Alderman Oldenburg, Alderwoman Martin, and Alderman Jeffrey Boyd. An ordinance calling and providing for the holding of an election in the City of St. Louis on November 3rd, 2020 for the purpose of submitting to the qualified electors of the City of St. Louis a proposal to levy and collect a property tax of 6 cents per each $100 of assessed valuation, in addition to the current authorized levy of 19 cents per each $100 of assessed valuation as provided for in Section 210.860 Revised Statutes of Missouri for the purpose of providing additional funding to the Community Children's Service Fund, and in particular to fund early childhood services to children aged 5 years and younger. The following board bill was reported out of Ways and Means with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 16, sponsored by Alderman Vollmer, Alderwoman Clark Hubbard, and Alderman Vaccaro. An ordinance to provide for the borrowing of funds in anticipation of the collection of tax payments levied by the City of St. Louis, Missouri, for deposit in its general revenue fund for the calendar year ending December 31st, 2020, and remaining uncollected, and other revenues remaining to be collected and deposited in the general revenue fund for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2021. All such revenues for the general revenue fund in the treasury of the City of St. Louis, Missouri, through the issuance of the City of St. Louis, Missouri of its tax and revenue anticipated notes and acquiring of credit enhancement if necessary in order to lower the cost of such borrowing, prescribing the form and details of such notes, authorizing and approving certain documents and other actions, and containing an emergency clause. That is the extent of second readings.
We'll dispense with line item 14, perfection consent.
Board Bill 9, sponsored by Alderwoman Howard, an ordinance pertaining to the Employees Retirement System of City of St. Louis by repealing Section 2 of Ordinance 70154 and acting in lieu thereof a new provision in order to comply with federal Setting Every Community Up for Retirement and that Enhancement Act of 2019 and containing an emergency clause. That is the extent of perfection consent.
Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the motion for the perfection consent calendar.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for adoption of the perfection consent calendar.
Moved by Alderman from the 22nd, seconded by the Alderman from the 13th and the Alderman from the 10th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Line item 16 through 19. Alderman from the 19th, you recognize on the motion for the courtesy resolutions calendar.
I move that we adopt our courtesy resolution calendar for today.
It's been moved by the
Second.
Alderman from the 19th, seconded by the
Second.
Alderman from the 14th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. First reading of resolutions.
Resolution 9, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, urging the General Assembly to amend Chapter 115.600 Revised Statute of Missouri to maintain the members of each political party's committee at 56 following ward reduction.
Alderman from the 19th, you recognize on first reading of resolution number 9.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to ask for unanimous consent.
Objection.
There's been an objection to unanimous consent. So Alderwoman, you can choose to suspend the rules and still try to move it out today or send it to do you want to send it?
We have, Mr. President, we have almost 2 years to deliberate this issue that has been brought to us by all of the current committee people and their views on the future. So I have no problem with sending it to committee.
All right. Would you like to send it to Rules and Engrossments?
I would like to send it to Rules and Engrossment. Thank
Been
you.
moved by the Alderman from the 19th that we send resolution number 9 to Rules and Engrossments. Entertain a second on that motion.
Second.
Seconded by the Alderwoman from the 14th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Sign resolution number 9 to rules.
Resolution 12, sponsored by Alderwoman Tyus. The Engrossment, Rules, and Resolution and Enrollment Committee immediately convene a hearing for the purpose of requiring Dr. Frederick Eccles to appear before the committee, bringing with him all documents that will prove at the time he was hired and started as the Director of Health, he met the minimum qualifications under the city charter to be such, and or if he currently meets the minimum qualifications under the city charter.
Alderwoman from the first, you recognize on the first reading of resolution number 12.
Mr. President, members of the board, if the clerk would please read the resolution.
Madam Clerk, do you have a copy of resolution number 12
I
to
can
read?
pull it up. Resolution 12, investigating if the Director of Health does or has ever met minimum qualifications under the charter. Whereas the charter of the City of St. Louis was adopted by the vote of the citizens on June 30th, 1914, as such is the controlling law in the City of St. Louis. And whereas the City of St. Louis charter authorizes all 3 branches of local government of the City of St. Louis, which includes the executive branch, the mayor, the legislative branch, the president of the Board of Aldermen, and 28 alderpersons, and the judicial and city courts. Whereas all city officials, including the members of the Board of Aldermen and those appointed by the mayor, are required to take oath of office, which includes abiding by and following the city charter. And whereas it is important to note that the elected officials have been removed from the city and city employees have been fired for violating sections of the city charter, whereas the charter defines the powers and duties as well as the minimum qualifications and salaries of each branches of local government. And whereas the charter also defines the powers and duties and the minimum qualifications and salaries of officers appointed under the charter by the mayor, which include the assessor, supply commissioner, register, city councilor, city marshal, city court judges, the clerk of city courts, president of the Board of Public Service, director of public utilities, director of street, director of welfare, director of parks, recreation, and forestry, director of health and hospital, and director of public safety. And whereas Article 13, Section 14C of the Charter states in pertinent part of the Department of Health and Hospital shall be in charge of a director of health and hospital appointed by the mayor. Whereas until November 2002, Article 13, Section 14C, entitled Direct Qualifications, stated the Director of Health and Hospitals shall be a regularly licensed practitioner of medicine and surgery and a graduate of a recognized school of medicine and shall have completed graduate work in a recognized school of public health to the level of a master's degree in public health or have been certified by the American of Preventive Medicine and Public Health. He also shall have at least 3 years experience in the practice of medicine and at least 3 years experience in public health, with at least 2 years of such experience in a responsible administrative capacity. Whereas the only way to amend the city charter is to put the proposed change out to a vote of the citizens of St. Louis and get 3/5 of the qualified voters voting in said election to vote for the change. And whereas in 2002, after 3 city hospitals had been closed, Homer G. Phillips in 1979, St. Louis City Hospital in 1985, and St. Louis Regional Medical Center in 1997, then the president of the Board of Aldermen, Jim Shrewsbury, introduced and passed Board Bill 56, which became Ordinance 65578. Ordinance 65578 was an ordinance submitted to the qualified voters of the City of St. Louis, a proposed amendment to the charter of the City of St. Louis, repealing Paragraph 8, Section 14C of Article 13 of the Charter of the City of St. Louis relating to the qualifications of the Director of Health and Hospitals, enacting in lieu thereof a new paragraph for Section 14C, providing for an election to be held thereon and for the manner of voting thereat, containing an emergency clause. Whereas on November 5th, 2002, the voters of the City of St. Louis adopted the change in the ordinance, repealing a part of Section A, so the Director of Health and Hospital did not have to be a doctor. The new paragraph for Section 14C was changed to read as follows. Section 14C, Director Qualifications. The Director of Health and Hospital shall be a licensed practitioner of medicine and surgery and a graduate of accredited School of Medicine, or shall have completed graduate work in accredited School of Public Health to the level of master's degree in public health, or have been certified by the American Board of Preventive Medicine and Public Health. The director shall also have at least 3 years of experience in practice of medicine, or shall have at least 3 years experience in public health work, with at least 2 years of experience in responsible administrative capacity. Said amendment become part of the Charter of the City of St. Louis from the date of said election on November 2nd, 2002. And whereas on February the 7th, 2019, Dr. Frederick Eccles was appointed Director of Health by Mayor Lyda Cruz, and at the time of his hiring, it was noted in the newspaper that Dr. Eccles was not licensed to practice medicine in the state of Missouri. It did not state he was not licensed to practice medicine anywhere. As Dr. Eccles did not come from a position of civil service in the City of St. Louis, his credentials and other requirements, such as if he met minimum qualifications for the Director of Health for the City of St. Louis as set out in the St. Louis City Charter, were not vetted by the Department of Personnel. Whereas it has become known through court filing done by our city councilor, Julian Bush, that Dr. Frederick Eccles testified under oath that he was a licensed physician when he was not, necessitating the city councilor, who was required by law to file a memorandum correcting the testimony of Dr. Frederick Eccles and notifying the court that Dr. Eccles had testified incorrectly and he was not a licensed doctor, as he had let his license lapse. Whereas, as per our city charter, the Director of Health appoints the Health Commissioner, who shall be responsible for the administration of public health. When the sponsor of this resolution sought to inquire as the name of the Health Commissioner, it appears that Dr. Eccles has appointed himself as Health Commissioner. Our city charter states in pertinent part that the Health Commissioner shall adopt such rules and regulations as will tend to preserve or promote the public health, which are consistent with the provisions of this charter and any law or ordinance. Whereas Article 13, Section 14C goes on to state that whenever any malignant, infectious, or contagious disease is threatened or is prevalent in the city, or a proclamation thereof by the mayor with the approval of the mayor and the Director of Health and Hospital, Health Commissioner may take steps, use such measures, and incur such expenses as deemed necessary to avoid or suppress or mitigate such disease until the mayor proclaims the need thereof, therefore, ending notwithstanding anything to the contrary in this charter or any ordinance. Whereas Dr. Frederick Eccles, as the Health Director and Commissioner of Health, has taken steps to address the COVID-19 pandemic by issuing stay-at-home orders that include closing some businesses, which the sponsor of this resolution not only agreed with, but thought the order should have been more aggressive in the closing of businesses to prevent the spread of virus that has gripped the world. Nevertheless, the issue has become, was Dr. Eccles legally able to issue such orders? And whereas the charter of the City of St. Louis is specific in its minimum qualifications requirement of the Director of Health, it is paramount that this board determine if Dr. Eccles has now or has ever had the minimum qualifications to hold the positions of Director of Health. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the Engrossment, Rules, Resolution, and Enrollment Committee immediately convene a hearing for the purposes of requiring Dr. Frederick Eccles to appear before the committee, bringing with him all documents that will prove if at the time he was hired and started as the Director of Health, he met the minimum qualifications under the city charter to be such, and if he currently meets the minimum qualifications under the city charter to be the Director of Health to it, Director's minimum qualifications. The Director of Health and Hospital shall be a licensed practitioner or medicine and surgery and a graduate of an accredited school of medicine, or shall have completed graduate work in an accredited school of public health to the level of a master's degree in public health, or have been certified by the American Board of Preventive Medicine and Public Health. The director shall have had at least 3 years of experience in the practice of medicine, or shall have had at least 3 years experience in public health, with at least 2 years of such experience in a responsible administrative capacity. Introduced this 15th day of May, 2020 by the Honorable Sharon Tyus, Alderwoman, First Ward.
Alderwoman from the first.
Mr. President, members of the board, I'd ask for this resolution to be sent to the Rules and Resolutions and Credentials Committee.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the first that we assign resolution number 12.
Second.
Been seconded by the Alderman from the 23rd. Any further discussion?
Point of order.
Alderwoman from the 5th, please state your point of order.
I guess I just have a question. I'm not sure if this is the appropriate time to ask it, but I have a question about us being able to send it to a particular committee, or can the sponsor, whatever committee,
Yes,
use my process.
Yeah, yes, the sponsor can make a motion and get a second, and if they get the votes, it will go to the committee that they requested. And if all of that fails, it goes to Rules and Engrossments. So no matter what, it'll go to Rules and Engrossments, even if the motion failed.
Okay, thank you.
All right, it's been moved by the Alderwoman from the first, seconded by the Alderman from the 23rd. Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 14th.
Yes, I guess I did not hear the question, so the answer, I'm sorry, she was breaking up.
Yeah, the Alderwoman from the 5th asked, does the sponsor of a resolution have the power to send the resolution to whatever committee they would like to send it to? And the way our rules read is resolutions, when they're introduced, there's only a couple things you can do. You cannot put it on an informal calendar, right? So they either have to pass by unanimous consent or be sent to a committee, or you have to suspend the rules to try to still move it out that day in case you do not get unanimous consent. The primary sponsor of the resolution can make a motion to send it to whatever committee they would like to refer it to. If that motion fails, then it automatically goes to Rules and Engrossments. So the primary sponsor has made a request that this be sent to Rules and Engrossments. She's made the motion. It's been seconded by the Alderman from the 23rd. So even if this fails, it goes to Rules and Engrossments.
Thank you for your generous explanation.
All right, thank you. It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 1st, seconded by the Alderman from the 23rd, that we assign resolution number 12 to Rules and Engrossments.
Calling a point, I'm sorry, Mr. President, I was calling a point of order, and
Alderwoman from the 20th, please state your point of order.
Just for the record, I think the Alderwoman, excuse me, from the first did an excellent job outlining the concerns here and pointing out that we really should maybe hear some of the questions that she poses in her resolution. But for the record, I do think that this matter should be heard in the Health and Human Services Committee. I understand the rules and the procedures here will dictate that it goes to the Rules Committee. But for the record, I wanted to state that given the role of the Health and Human Services Committee and the role of the Rules Committee, I do think we should be hearing it in the Health and Human Services Committee. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 19th. Wait a minute.
Please.
Alderwoman from the 19th, you'll have to start over. We didn't hear the first part of it.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was a little confused because we're going back and forth on causes for committee selection on this. And then when Alderwoman Howard was speaking, it brought to my mind that this is an employee, and would it go to public employees? Would that be more appropriate? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Okay.
I thank you. I just wanted to make that point. I know there's a lot of different things being suggested.
Okay, thank you, Alderman from the 19th. Alderman from the let's actually go to the Alderman from the 25th, because we've already heard from the Alderwoman from the 1st, so we'll go back to her. Alderman from the 25th.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I hear my colleagues and their questions about whether or not this should be assigned to another committee, whether it's health or public employees. But I think there's, two things that I just want to elaborate. One, it's not just rules and engrossments, it's the rules, engrossments, and credentials committee. The public health director is not a civil service employee, and therefore, and I think that this was beautifully stated in the resolution. The vetting process doesn't typically go through the Civil Service Commission for these types of appointments. So I think, we would be examining the credentials for his fitness for qualifications for that office. So maybe not so much his fitness for it, but his qualifications thereof, and whether or not he would have been credentialed in the first place. So I can understand where the sponsor would want this assigned to that particular committee, but I also hear that it could go to public employees or health as well. But I think more so, for clarity's sake, it's actually requested in the resolution itself that this goes to that specific committee. So we would need to amend that resolution in order to change whether or not it goes to that committee. So the next vote that we have, if it's not an amendment to the resolution, would affirmatively send it to the Rules and Engrossment and Credentials Committee.
Alderwoman from the 1st.
Mr. President, members of the board, if we were getting into other details, being the rules person I am, I would have suggested it go to either the health or public employees. But the Alderman from the 25th just beat me to what I was going to say, as far as that this is also credentials. When the new Alder people get elected in June, they have to come to the Credentials Committee, which is the Rules Committee. So I don't want to get into anything about what kind of job he's done or anything like that. My resolution is strictly to go into if he has the proper credentials. He is not a civil servant, which is why I didn't say the Public Employees Committee. And because we're not getting into what kind of job or things like that, I didn't suggest the Health Committee. I have no problem we've had joint committees before. If the Alderwoman from the 20th wants to have a joint hearing with the Rules Committee, I have no problem with that. And I will talk to her about that if that's what she wants to do after this. But I do believe that because the Rules Engrossment is also credentials, that the proper place for it to be is in the Rules Committee.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 21st.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just reading the rules for our Board of Aldermen. And the Rules, Resolution, and Credentials Committee only dictate the rules, resolutions, and credentials for the Board of Aldermen, not the City of St. Louis, not the Mayor's Executive Cabinet, not any other department nor agency in our city government, only the Board of Aldermen. So I think it's improper to send this particular resolution about the credentials of an employee of the city that is not appointed by the Board of Aldermen to a committee that's specifically supposed to govern the credentials of our legislative body, not anything outside of that. I would support the request from the Alderwoman from the 20th Ward or the Alderwoman for the 19th Ward. It should go to public employees or health and human services. I think that it's very improper to send this to a committee that is not charged with the task of doing what the resolution suggests that it should do.
Alderwoman from the first.
First of all, none of the committees are charged with this task. And it is incorrect to say that we can only look at the credentials for the Board of Aldermen. That is a narrow reading of someone who does not understand our rules. The Rules, Resolution, and Engrossment Committee also touches everything. We have to touch every single board bill that comes through this committee more than once, twice. So it gives us a broad stroke, actually. We have not been vetting the mayor's appointments because we've never had this situation come up before. Well, I'm sorry, not since I've been here. I've talked to other aldermen who have served before me because I got lots of phone calls telling me, Sharon, go look here, here, and here, and this is what happened here. So I found out there have been pushbacks in previous administrations when the mayors have done what they consider to be improper appointments, and following guidelines of what I was told by people who were more senior than me. That's why I crafted this very carefully, and why I also requested that it be sent to the Rules and Engrossment Committee. The truth is, I didn't have to do a resolution. I could have had the hearings anyway. I did a resolution because there was a lot of misinformation being put out about what was going on with this. The fact that the credentials that we were requiring from the Director of Health were some that were so dated. It was back when we had hospitals. That was not true. I actually was the 20th Ward Alderwoman in 2002 when we changed this. And this was after we were crushed by having all of our hospitals closed. The president was there then too as an alderman from the 6th. And we were very upset about having hospitals closed. And then current President Jim Shrewsbury came and talked to me and other people about that maybe our requirements were too stringent now that we didn't have to have a doctor because it was a hospital, and that we could then have some alternatives, which we all voted on and agreed to and put it out to the vote. But to say that the Rules Committee can't do anything or shouldn't be the proper place is just wrong, because the Rules Committee actually can do more than any other committee with all the different things that we have to do. And I've often bragged on our committee because we do work really hard, and even when we have problems, I call up aldermen and try to get their things straightened out so that we don't hold up anything, whether we agree with it or not. So it is exactly the place that you would, short of having a committee that says we're going to do the mayor's appointees, it's exactly the committee that would be the place to send said resolution. And it's not going to be dead anyway, because I can have the hearings, and I will. And there's much more that is not in this resolution. And I would love to get this thing resolved. But if you want to try to hijack it and take it someplace else, it will not go away. I want you all to know I have way more information, and I would like for this to be a pretty simple thing.
Alderwoman from the 14th.
Yes, I agree with the Alderwoman from the 1st. I am a member of that committee, but I think that for transparency purposes and to clear the air, I mean, I'm confident with the job that Dr. Eccles has done personally, but I think that, you know, we've got all these little pieces out there, and I think for his integrity and for the integrity of the city, we need to have this aired and know just exactly what's going on.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's not that I don't support Dr. Eccles, but I feel that as Alderwoman Howard stated, it's a lot of ridicule that's coming out there. So to me, it's better for us to come ahead of it and say, you know, we've done what we're supposed to do. We made sure that things were on point. Dr. Eccles has done a great job. I'm not going to take that away from him. But I look back and I think, you know, we have to make sure that we set a higher standards than what the norm is. And as African Americans, we cannot continue to just say that you just messing with us because we are African Americans. We need to be held accountable and make sure that we are following the guidelines. A lot of people that are like me raised their kids that they had to come to a higher standard. So I don't see anything wrong with making him come up and tell us what his credentials are. I don't see a problem with that. I support the work that he's done, but a lot of you all already know my family has went through the same ridicule, and the city put them through to make sure that my son-in-law had all his credentials and he was in order. And so when he proved he was in order, then it was all good job. So no, I agree we need to push that, but I continuously support the work he's doing. But I'm not gonna continuously keep saying because he's Black, he shouldn't be dealt with like this. No, to me, it's for anybody. Anybody that's in these positions should be held accountable because they should be at a much higher standard than other people are.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 19th.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President and members of the committee, our Board of Aldermen. I can agree with the alderpersons of the 1st and 27th wards, only because we do know that Dr. Eccles is a physician, served in the Navy for 5 years, and is currently serving with the Pandemic Task Force with extremely qualified chiefs of hospitals and other doctors. So I think that we can, you know, bring all of that forward and clear the air, and whatever past job he may have had, whatever anything is, just clear it all up. So I think he'll be fine. And I think that even though there are a number of committees that could have gone to, intergovernmental affairs, the list goes on. So we're good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 5th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I would just like to echo some of the sentiments of my colleagues. Of course, I was confused about exactly what committee that it should go to. I think that, you know, we should be above board and make sure that, you know, a person has all the proper credentials. I feel that he's more than qualified. I actually commend him for how he has handled this situation. But I think what I do have a problem with when you see someone just being publicly ostracized and you see someone being attacked, and we all know it's personal in a lot of situations, and I feel that that's not right, and that's just not how we should be conducting business. And you know, I get it that, you know, some people may have whatever issue that they may have with Dr. Eccles, but I think if we are definitely going to send it to committee, like everyone is saying, send it to committee, find out if he meet the credentials. And when I was reading what the credentials stated, I mean, it's like if he's been an MD, he's more than qualified. And it's really kind of weird how, okay, if you don't have this, you can have a master's. That whole, the regs on it need to be changed, in my opinion, on what the credentials should be. But what I just want us to do is just move forward, and, you know, people are concerned about it. So put the truth out there. We know he's beyond qualified, but don't use it as a means to publicly bash him. Don't use it as a means for people, because they didn't agree with how he handled something, to attack him, because I feel that that's not fair. And I feel that our constituents, especially during a time like this, are expecting us to lead in a way and just get stuff done and get stuff back to normal. I don't think our constituents will really be pleased with seeing us attack someone when we've never had anything to say about him before. But now that all this is going on, you know, people want to use whatever means they can to just put on the show. And I don't like that. I think that we just need to be above board and conduct the business of the city. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the first, you recognize the close on sending, and this is just for the discussion pieces that we need to hit, or just for sending this to committee. If there's any final comment about sending it to committee, and then we're just going to take a voice vote, or you would like to renew your motion.
Mr. President, members of the board, I'd just like to address the thing about showboating and things. If this had not come before my purview with the city councilor sending out something saying, correcting a statement that the doctor had made, this would not have been coming before me. But it did come before me, and you guys know that I try to follow the rules as best I can. And even if I think one of you all is making a mistake, I will say it, and I will try to help you. So this has nothing to do with showboating or anything else. This is, I believe that you should clear up people's name. If people keep saying all this stuff, the best way you can do is to produce the evidence. And that's what I'm asking for here. If somebody says, Sharon, you're not a licensed attorney, I produce my bar card pretty fast, okay? My cousin is a doctor, so before I wrote this up, I called my cousin and her husband and their doctors. How do you show that you have a license if you're a doctor? Because I wasn't familiar with that. I have familiarized myself with a lot of the process now, but I do believe that people have a right to face their accusers and say, hey, this is not true or this is true. I think that we're going to have to look at how the mayor's appointees are vetted. I've been saying that for a long time, but I never thought it was appointees. I was thinking it was for other things. And for that reason, I renew my motion that this resolution be sent to the Rules Committee. We invite Doctor to come before us and to clarify the misinformation or correct information that has been out there before about him.
All right, it's been moved by the Alderman from the first, second.
Let me get this info. I'll call you right back.
Been moved by the Alderman from the first, seconded by the Alderman from the 23rd, that we assign resolution number 12 to rules and engrossments. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Madam, assign resolution number 12 to rules.
So noted. That is the extent of first reading of resolution.
Second reading.
The Public Safety Committee report. The Public Safety Committee approved the mayor's appointment to the Civilian Oversight Board with a due pass recommendation for Mr. Frank Kapanis.
Alderman from the 23rd, you recognize on the mayor's appointments to the Civilian Oversight Board.
So we had our meeting and Alderwoman Howard presented him. Very nice guy. I think as a committee, we vetted him the best we could. So I would just ask for unanimous consent that we go ahead.
Favorable.
Favorable passage. I'm sorry.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 23rd.
Second.
It's been seconded by the Alderwoman from the 4th that we adopt the mayor, we approve the mayor's appointment to the Civilian Oversight Board, which has been vetted by the Public Safety Committee and came out with a due pass recommendation. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Let's finish business.
We have none.
Announcements.
Tuesday, May 19th, Ways and Means will have a meeting at 10 a.m. via webinar. Health will have a meeting at 12 p.m. via webinar. Wednesday, May 20th, Ways and Means will have a meeting at 10 a.m. webinar. Thursday, May 21st, full board meeting, 10 a.m. via webinar. That is the extent of our announcements.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderwoman from the first.
Mr. President, members of the board, I had sent a request to the clerk that our normal Wednesday meetings for the Rules Committee be held. I believe for sure we have at least one board bill that was assigned there, and I think that was Alderwoman Howard that needs to be taken care of. I will let the clerk know if we are going to be on for to hear the other two resolutions that were assigned to the committee. But we do have Alderwoman Howard's board bill. I can't remember the number, but the one that she perfected, board bill 9 has to be done. So we want a meeting at 10 o'clock Wednesday webinar.
Madam Clerk, did you get that?
Yes.
Would you like to, could you repeat it for us?
The Rules Committee has a weekly meeting at 10 o'clock for all board bills that have been assigned to us so we can get them out and get them back on the calendar.
Okay, but the meeting date is?
Wednesday, I don't know what the.
I just wanted you to repeat it.
Let me see, Wednesday is May the 20th, May 20th.
All right, Madam Clerk, please make note of that.
So noted.
All right, Alderwoman from the 14th.
This is sort of a, it probably doesn't need to be taken care of here, but I don't know how else. Since the Alderwoman that first made that announcement, she needs to be aware that I'm double booked because there is a meeting for the, Ways and Means Committee, which I'm on.
Okay.
So I sent her an email, but
okay, thank you, Alderwoman. Alderwoman, well, Madam Clerk, could you please get with the Alderwoman from the 1st and you all work out a good meeting date with the clerk that does not run into other meetings. Then we have the Alderwoman from the 2nd. Alderwoman from the 2nd.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I just want to congratulate Cameron Anthony Middlebrook. He is being promoted to middle school.
Oh,
I want to,
congratulations.
Yes, yay. I want to congratulate all the students in St. Louis Public Schools who are being promoted or graduating. Thank all the teachers who have put up with us parents during this pandemic. It has been a trying time for everyone. Some parents had to admit to themselves that, the teacher was not the problem, and accept that. So congratulations to all the students, to all the parents. You did a great job. We did it. They are moving on. And thank you.
All right, thank you. Tell them congratulations from all of us here at the board also. Alderwoman from the 8th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I believe Alderman from the 20th also has her hand up. I'm not sure.
I don't see it in the list here.
I think she just visually has her hand up at the moment. But I actually have more of a question. Resolution number 8 from last week, has that been assigned to a committee yet?
Resolution number 8, that's going to be assigned today to a committee.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. And I'm going down the list of blue hands. So if you want to be recognized, just raise your hand with the blue hand here on the side so I can recognize you. Alderwoman from the 14th.
Oh, I'm okay. I didn't take my hand down.
Alderwoman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to recognize that today is National Half-Mast Day, with having your flags half-mast in honor of veterans and also police officers and others who have served and or passed in the service of duty.
Okay. Thank you. Alderwoman from the 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to announce that May the 19th, we are going to do a support for the seniors of Northwest High School. And we'll be on the parking lot. We're asking people to come in their cars, bring balloons to let them know that we support them staying strong and graduating from the high school. And at that time, we will work with the principal and the teachers to make sure we show our support and unity.
All right, thank you. Alderwoman from the 26th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, and following with my colleague from the 2nd. I want to congratulate my daughter, Atala Hubbard. She's graduating from the 8th grade at Quarlane Middle School, St. Louis Public Schools, and moving on to Central VPA Vision Performing Arts High School next year. So congratulations, Oslo. Me and your daddy are so proud of you and we love you.
Congratulations. Fellow congratulations from the entire Board of Aldermen and the City of St. Louis. Keep up the good work. Alderman from the 20th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I just wanted to announce we'll be having a Health and Human Services Committee hearing on Tuesday at 1 p.m.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Any more blue hands? Nobody else? Going once, going twice. Yep. All right. Alderman from the 22nd, recognized on the motion to excuse.
Mr. President, members of the board, all members are present.
Awesome. Alderman from the 22nd, you recognize on the motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move to adjourn until May 22nd, 10 a.m.
It's been moved by the Alderman from 22nd.
Second.
Second.
That's wrong.
From 10th, and Alderman from the 25th raised his hand. I'm assuming that's for motion.
No.
Alderman from 25th, you didn't have
No, I
okay.
I both verbally seconded and raised my hand.
All right, perfect. So it's been seconded by Alderman from 25th also. So moving and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Stand adjourned. Thank you.